many congratulations और बधाई आज का दिन का इंटरनेशनल डे फॉर बायोलॉजिकल डाइवर्सिटी. The theme for the current year is be part of the plan. I think it is extremely valuable. Dr. Ram Prasad ji, my Guruji, he was just saying a moment ago that if we are part of the plan, if the department is part of the plan, any department for that matter, is part of the plan, then perhaps one can move ahead. So this is a very important theme, and part of the plan means, of course, the plan related to biodiversity conservation under the Biodiversity Convention. So today I'm very briefly going to discuss about problem of desertification in India, and then how should we address biodiversity conservation, climate change mitigation and adaptation both, as well as livelihoods. So, Gyanesh ji, please remind me when I have left with 10 minutes.
Okay, sir.
Without any formality, you can just say 10 minutes remaining. Although
Okay,
I am
sir.
keeping a tab on that, but so friends, on the one hand, sorry.
We like spicy. Either the we like spicy, but for the case,
Indu, can you mute your mic? Indu, if you're listening to me. Indu, can you mute your mic? Yeah, okay. Thank you, Indu.
So let us see what is happening on the front of major deserts on Earth. If you look at just two simple facts, that Sahara has already reached the western limits of expansion, and Thar has all the way, I mean, entire eastern India is available, central India, east and eastern India is available for expansion. This is one fact that we should remember, we should keep in our head. That is one important. Sahara and Thar, I am giving example, both are not comparable. Thar is, of course, among the most populated. So on the other hand, if you see, the risks of desertification and their drivers, I think India is certainly a large part of India beyond Thar Desert. In fact, half of Western India, including areas below Western Ghats, those are vulnerable. You all know that. But just to place things in mind, and drivers are known to you, but climate change is, of course, one of the major. Now, when you see the global aridity index, this is also important thing to keep in mind when we move ahead, that the global vegetation resilience depends on water availability. That is extremely important fact, the availability of water and regular availability. So the variability matters. Now, if we move ahead, there are studies that clearly show that Thar Desert is moving eastward. This is one interesting piece. This is 2008 research paper that has not yet been contradicted by any scientist, but there are other indications of a different kind here. About 10,000 years ago, up till about till 3,500 years ago, Thar Desert had good rainfall. Now, what is happening? The monsoon then shifted eastward and Thar became dry. Now, monsoon is shifting westward. Please remember this. This research paper was published just, recently, that the monsoon is shifting westward and therefore entire Thar Desert can go. Now, interestingly, when we say arresting desertification, then we are concerned with the arresting its eastward movement, as well as enhancing the productivity, biodiversity, and carbon sequestration within the landscape using the natural ecosystems that we already have. For example, Rajasthan has 247 tree species. And Indian desert, if you calculate all plants, then 682 and 107 species of grasses. Such are the great grasslands that Thar Desert has. The 107 species of grasses. Now, we are also facing the challenge of random recurrence of drought. Sometimes every 2.5 years. Western Rajasthan every 2.5 years to 2 years, and Eastern Rajasthan every 3 years. Now that creates a lot of problems. I'm not going to get into many details, but giving you some of the most dominant facts that you should remember when we move ahead. Now, as the climate changes, there is another phenomenon which is predicted, that there will be reactivation of sand dunes. The sand dunes that have been stabilized for some time by human intervention. I think the network is creating problem. Am I audible, Gyanesh?
Yes, sir, we can listen to you. If possible, you can like switch off the camera so that you can get good bandwidth while speaking.
You can switch off your camera.
Yeah, I'm thinking of doing that. Stop video. Okay. Now tell me if I'm audible.
Yes, it is pretty good now, sir.
Okay, that is great. So reactivation of sand dunes is predicted, and therefore remobilization, the whole thing that was prevailing before we started sand dune stabilization could again become the reality. In those days, 80s, we used to spend about 300 crore rupees. 300 crore rupees to clean roads, and because of the sand dune fixation, all those challenges became zero, and today we don't need any money to clean either roads, rails, or canals. But as the climate changes, the remobilization of sand dune systems is definitely predicted, and predicted worldwide. So this is another fact which I wish we remember. And if this reactivation happens, then schools like this would be schools, roads, and in many infrastructures would go. So therefore, what we need is, this is a framework from home to forests or home to wilderness. There are many practices that relate to household, for example, home gardens, trees around water points, trees in courtyards, then of course farm practices, khadins, trees around water points, gardens, then village level landscapes, if you see practices, sacred groves, sacred corridors, temple forests, many practices. and then finally towards the wilderness. So what we need to go for to improve the landscape continuum in Thar Desert should involve from the households to the last frontiers of wilderness. Wilderness, I am using this term little loosely because no true wilderness remains. Humans have impact on everywhere. For example, reactivation can create problem for agriculture because agriculture could become possible in Western Rajasthan primarily because of the sand dune stabilization, which of course sequesters large amount of carbon and also supports local biodiversity. So the challenge is that in order to let these sand dunes remain fixed, we now need to go to take some iterative action. Whatever has happened was good enough for 20-25 years, but now reactivation is really happening, as you see here. As I said, agriculture development couldn't have been possible, which is now, of course, desert areas produce huge amount of food grains. So if we want to ensure the societal resilience, ecological resilience, and of course want to reduce vulnerability, then we must invest. Call whatever you want to call it green wall or call most appropriate intervention. See here, this is one sand dune which was stabilized. You can see here three important things. Some agriculture, and on the foreground, this is the water protected. The water is protected in these 3-4 wells. People have just covered dead wood over these wells, and that is how these landscapes are kept productive. I think this internet is troubling, seems. Ganesh ji, if I'm not audible, बताइएगा.
Yes, sir.
Similar is the situation with the roads. Now, some plantations I want to show you. These are images from Google Earth, and these are our work that we have done starting the last 20 years, let us say, 20-25 years. Although the history of sand dune stabilization is very old, 1950s के भी कुछ research papers मिलते हैं उस जमाने के, but large scale sand dune stabilization. Now see here, these are some areas. For example, this plantation is protecting all these farmlands. This one, if you see, are two examples from elsewhere. One is from Israel, the other one from Iran. Almost similar. I'm taking you back for a while. Almost similar kind of work, infrastructure protection. Then again, this image is from Israel and China. This is from Thar Desert. So, carbon and biodiversity and livelihoods are not necessarily supported only by trees, but also even by climbers. Now, this is long ago, this was almost useless species. No one, Matira, except local people, no one might have used. But today, the Matira has become very famous. Kher, Sangri, and those wild fruits are dried. Sangri is being sold for 3,000 rupees per kg. So again, protection to settlements. If you see how sand dune stabilization, a clear green wall that is visible is a Sura cluster in Bardmer, where if you see is entire settlement and a tank, water tank, तालाब जिसको कहते हैं आप, both are protected. Now, how green walls could be important for life and livelihoods of the people, this picture can be used to provide a long narrative. But I just wanted to show you that some of the areas where we have worked, this is the same place. This is Bardmer city. Look at the dhora that we have, sand dune that we have stabilized, and look at the city, how close it has developed. Bardmer today is, of course, one of the most important cities of India, primarily because of the hydrocarbon. You all know that. This is another sand dune stabilization work in Jodhpur, very near to railway station. Here you see two examples, one from Yatir of Israel and another one from Bardmer. The second one on the right side, right-hand side, is from Bardmer. Now, these are the walls that can help protect infrastructure as well as our entire landscape, actually. Now, the important thing here to remind is, before I move further, that we have used in those days very few species. Almost 90% plants are exotic tree, of course, acclimatized in that area. But we now need to move to some of those species that are found in Thar Desert. If we count trees, at least more than 240 tree species, then this is another cluster protecting farmlands. Here, prior to this was the kind of situation. See some of the photographs on top where the rail and the water channel gets clogged because of moving sands, because of these moving sands, and the two photographs below provide you example of how the canal has clear water, clearly flowing water, and the other. This is again strengthening water security, particularly in that area, is necessary because 100 millimeter rainfall is the reality for a long time in Jaisalmer and 120 or so in Bardmer. So here, if you stabilize these sand dunes or create green walls, then we can have infrastructures protected, just like another one here, landscape restoration around the traditional water harvesting system. How, if you see numerous wells on the bed of the tank, on the bed of the talab. So while the water is not visible on the surface, water is nevertheless available in these wells. So people and their livestock depend entirely on these wells. Some more examples of how we work with the community. Just some examples of grassland restoration, not just tree planting, but grassland restoration and of course, along with enhancing the productivity for livelihood security of local people, it also sequesters large amount of carbon. Some slides you see of the grassland protection, grassland restoration, and the kind of participation, I mean, the grass, how useful it can be for the local people, and how they negotiate the system of grass harvest. This particular slide shows not just community, not just sand dune stabilization, but community development works will be important when we move ahead in this direction. And one value of one single tree, look at the large number of livestock, large number of cattle beneath that tree, on the shade of that tree. Again, sand dune stabilization, then farmlands, and then water protection. Here, biodiversity conservation and some settlements, this particular cluster I wanted to show because here we have planted large number of native species. So therefore wanted to let you know, Chobhatan Balmer. This is another a small water tank, talai, and a large sand dune, stabilized sand dune, where the green area you find. Now, as I said, we have to have the sequential restoration of these landscapes because initially only few species were used, very few species. Acacia tortilis, for example, has been the important species that was used. Now we need to, of the 247 or so species of trees and about 200 species of shrubs, we need to use all of at least 10 to 25% of these species so that both livelihoods and carbon sequestration can also be strengthened. Because there are large seeded animal dispersed, as I keep saying, large seeded animal dispersed, heavy wooded, late successional species. Although succession in Indian desert, in the Great Indian Desert, is of a very different kind, but you still find there. So phased reintroduction of species that occur in that area is required. Now, this is a simulation I'm showing how what sequential restoration mean. Look here, this is the real Balisar sand dune, which was stabilized in 1987. And now it has been reactivating because of various reasons. Just one tree species cannot hold for such a long time. Of course, the condition has ameliorated, but you still need to go for local species. So this is here you notice the reduction in density deficit because when we use trees and shrubs, two layers, so fog has been used here. थोड़ा सा आपको डेंस दिखता है इस एरिया में, तो फोग का उपयोग किया गया है, कैलिगोनम पॉलीगोनाइडिस जिसको कहते हैं, और लैसुरस सिंडिकस, जो ये दोनों इंडियन डेजर्ट की एंडेमिक स्पीसीज हैं. कैलिगोनम की बहुत सारी स्पीसीज अन्यत्र पाई जाती हैं, बट कैलिगोनम पॉलीगोनाइडिस is found only in Thar Desert, and Lacurus syndicus, of course, only in Thar Desert. So when you plant these two species in combination, you can see the density difference in the vegetation. Here a little more closer. This is Badmer, Chava Badmer. Now a simulation. Normally this is the kind of landscape that you find of a sand dune. These are the grids that we make using local material, local shrubs. And we also go for direct seeding of fog, Caligonum polygonoides. After that, you go for planting, and this was the resultant vegetation, the real photograph. The resultant vegetation after about 10 years. Now the remobilization, your bare patches of sands have started appearing, and the whole thing would go back again to same situation, and therefore we need to as today's day suggests, be part of the plan that combines biodiversity enhancement, carbon sequestration, and livelihoods improvement. So this would be a great natural climate solution, which would also yield livelihoods benefits and biodiversity benefits. For example, if you just leave this is going to get back again to this similar kind of situation, or else if you start planting indigenous species in bare patches, it might move to this kind of situation, might go to betterment, and further density can improve. Here, as the density improves, the amount of carbon sequestered below ground and above ground both improve, as well as livelihood goods and services can also improve. As you have already seen earlier, in earlier slides, how people protect water resources, how they protect dried tanks that have water beneath. So these are some examples which I'm showing you. Bear is important. Bear, fog, keep. These are the ecosystem processes that need to become autogenic. This is Caligonum polygonoides. And you can see seed dispersal on the lower left corner photograph. You know how seeds get deposited naturally in the microsites, and how regeneration happens on the left side, lower right side. So again, restoring sequential restoration of example. Look at the soil carbon that is getting deposited here. This is a fog, Caligonum polygonoides. I'm just giving one example because this is what we have. This is a valuable species. Every part of this species is used. And if you want to enjoy the raita of fog, its dried flowers are sold for about 1,000 rupees a kg today. This is slightly close-up, direct seeding of Caligonum polygonoides, which uses limited water and can yield up to 7 ton per hectare biomass, more than, of course, the Prosopis juliflora and more than Acacia tortilis. Remember, a shrub here is yielding you more biomass and therefore more carbon compared to trees. This is a research from AFRI. This is again direct seeding of and plug planting of savon grass, which is, and on the foreground you see Matira. These are some data about biomass yields and carbon sequestration. I'm not going to repeat this. You may read at your leisure. Suffice it to say that both above ground and below ground, more in below ground in case of Caligonum polygonoides, and normally in above ground more in other cases. So please read this carefully, and you will find that the kind of interventions through natural climate solution that we are proposing has huge value. Where nothing grows, not even a grass of blade grows, there you can sequester large amount of carbon. Biomass-based energy projects can become a reality.
Sir, we have 10 more minutes for presentation.
10 more minutes. That's great. Thank you so much. So biomass-based energy, of course, is important. but Thar is now becoming famous for solar energy. Now, friends, little bit about what you call Aravallis. It takes about 500 to 1000 years, as the research suggests, to reach at the similar levels when the degeneration just set in the natural forests, natural tropical dry forests. This is the figure, the years, number of years, and the time required is indeed mind-boggling. So it is better to protect. And of course, if the protection, if things have gone wrong, then we need to just allow me creating some problem again. Yeah. So what we are doing in Aravalli is again protecting forests, then protecting biodiversity. We are helping sustain the colors of diversity of life, as we say. These are multifunctional species, multiple use species. Now we are slightly coming from Thar Desert to Aravallis. So we are also protecting and managing the westernmost population of tiger on earth. I'm sure you know Sariska and Ranthambore are the westernmost limits of tiger, where Panthera tigris is found. And we also conserve these beautiful forests, soils, and water, and therefore improve livelihoods. You can see well-protected forests and good croplands. All these are Aravalli's areas. This is, again, we create climate-smart landscapes in an entire agro-ecosystem where you find, by the way, this is a river, the origin of river Sabarmati in close to Mount Abu Hills. We also create green infrastructure in landscape continuum. Here you see, you find forest restoration towards the right-hand side, and then find numerous wells just on the edge of the croplands and forests. You may not visualize, but when the terminal drought happens, even one single irrigation can save these crops and can therefore save the livelihoods of these people. These are some examples how tropical dry forests have changed, how enriching landscapes have transformed livelihoods. We also sustain many medicinal plants, but of course, one may feel that whether the climbers can have carbon compared to trees, but in areas that do not have many trees, even the climbers can add to the landscape. These are some examples. One thing I wanted to say that there has been no net loss of forests in Rajasthan after 1995. This is an important fact. And I also wanted to say that during the 1994 and 2010, this is a very important study. Carbon density in Rajasthan increased by 12 teragram carbon, about 12.22 to be precise, while for comparison, in Gujarat, it decreased by 35 teragram. I'm not showing any state in poor light, but I'm just letting you know how Rajasthan values trees, shrubs, and climbers. Moving ahead, we also have protected riparian forests. This beautiful landscape is of Chambal. This is the urban green space in Jaipur, Jhalana Leopard Reserve. And So in a nutshell, carbon, biodiversity, livelihoods, all in a single frame. Moving ahead, we have produced large amount of science, yet large amount of science needs to be produced by Afri and Kajri and by everyone who is able to do that. And then synthesize scientific, experiential and traditional knowledge so that we can make the difference on the ground. Then monitoring, evaluation, I'm sure you know more than us. These are some of the ways we monitor our grids. Reaching towards the last slide, how certain interventions can result into reducing vulnerability and enhancing resilience. So desert infrastructure, green infrastructure, and then organization, social capital, of course, natural resources, roles and responsibilities. If we are able to get all this in sync, then we can, and if we are able to intervene positively for natural resource management as well as livelihoods improvement through good monitoring and adaptation system, then many things can happen. All that which I have already discussed, including the production of knowledge through monitoring, and then again getting back to iterative or adaptive management. And this is again, as I said, is an iterative process. Finally, again contributing to the resilience of landscape, livelihoods, and landscapes. So finally, biodiversity, livelihoods, and carbon. All three can sustain only when the contemporary ecosystems become and remain resilient, because the capability of these ecosystems to sequester more carbon, capability of these ecosystems to provide goods and services to the people is diminishing because of the climate change itself. So we need to intervene quickly and promptly if we are to intervene. And this is what actually I wanted to say in brief. I have hidden many slides and thought we will discuss. I think I'm completing ahead of 2 minutes. Gyaneshji?
Yes, sir. We have 1 more minute. But if we are done, like we can
Yes,
open.
I am.
Okay, then we can open the floor for the discussion, sir.
Please.
So if any one of you have any question, you can ask.
Is a question in the chat box also, Ganesh?
Okay, so sir, so we have one question from Sangeeta Mitra. She's
Ji.
asking to what extent Prosopis juliflora could be introduced to mitigate desertification, as it is an invasive one, and Piscineria is already there.
Prosopis juliflora should not be introduced. It has already unfortunately invaded our grasslands, and we are now removing Prosopis juliflora and restoring the grassland. So that's part one of the answer. Part two, grassland should not be planted with trees as far as possible. For example, Lasurus syndicus grasslands never had any tree, any species of tree, except maybe one in a square kilometer or so. So I would say the area between Aravalis and about 100 kilometers from Aravalis towards west side, we have numerous grasslands, great grasslands. And then again, more grasslands of Lasurus syndicus in Bardmer and Jaisalmer, those areas. So Prosopis juliflora is not good. We are removing it for many reasons, but primarily it suppresses natural regeneration of our indigenous species, number one. Number two, it suppresses completely eliminates grasslands. And therefore, Rajasthan, being the livestock-based economy, is suffering at the hands of this species. So I would suggest using indigenous species of grasses and trees and shrubs rather than Prosopis juliflora. Prosopis cineraria, of course, you can use. Prosopis cineraria and Tecomera undulata and Gigifus species. These three are our ancient agroforestry species, where carbon dating has informed us that have been practiced for more than 3,000 years or so. So that is my submission in a nutshell.
Okay, I can see the hand raised by Shiva. Shiva, you can go ahead for question.
Thank you, Nanis. Thank you, Mr. Fonde, for the presentation. So I think in one of the slides, you kind of shared about a research, I think that's published in 2023. I think that's based on some climatic simulations and all. That suggests that anyway, because of the change in the climate pattern, because now the monsoon is shifting, and because of that, anyway, most of the desert area is going to be turned into green. So if that is the case, why do we really need to intervene in that? So that's my first question. Secondly, all over the globe, if you look into the desertification or evolution of the sand dunes, I think that is more of an geological phenomena that's mostly influenced by last glacial maximum. Then afterwards, because of the dry up of the rivers and how the rivers evolved and all those reasons. So if it is more of an larger climatic and geological phenomena, and how feasible is this kind of interventions is going to be, like, green wall? So they have tried that for the Africa too, but that's not really been that successful. So if it is more of a larger climate and geological phenomena, how feasible is this kind of interventions?
This is a very important question. The first one, as you said, because the monsoon is now getting active and shifted towards westward, and therefore the Thar Desert might completely go away after 100 years or so. That is what the research is saying. And there are two ideas. One, that you rightly said, that let it shift and let whatever is happening happen. Second one is, if we had depended only on that, been dependent only on that, then by now we would have spent about in last 20 years, 25 years multiplied by 300 crore rupees. In today's value, that could be about 1,000 crore rupees today. So after 10 years, you can multiply 1,000 crore rupees to protect the infrastructure from moving sands. So while many things are, in fact, all these ecosystems are natural phenomena, but humans have modified throughout the settled history, agriculture, forestry. So I would say that you still need interventions, number one. Number two, waiting for 100 years based on the knowledge of simulation alone is not a great idea. Science can be produced, of course, as you have raised a very pertinent question. Science can be produced by theory. It can also be produced by observations. It can also be produced by experiments, and finally, modeling. So these modeling studies, while mathematically very juicy, no one knows how they are going to play. Many of the modeling studies that were published in Nature and Science 100 years ago have not played the same way as they were predicted. So I would say you still need human intervention.
Yeah, that's right. My second question. So anyway, because we are solely depending on more of an tree-based restoration, right? I think, if you look into pictures, I think I've also visited, some of the landscape in Rajasthan, because I think, deserts, I think they are more of a naturally evolving ecosystem. I think that you also mentioned, right?
Yes.
Do you
Yes.
think the tree-based restoration is a good idea?
No,
And
no,
you
no,
also
no,
mentioned
no.
that it's a large landscape of the grassland, and very rarely, so you find these trees probably square kilometers away and something like that. But if you look into the whole idea of green wall, so it's basically tree-based vegetation. Then how does that really justify that natural way of evolving the ecosystems?
No, my idea is not merely tree-based ecosystems. It is strengthening first that 3 steps. Number 1, strengthening the natural ecosystems as they exist today. That's number 1. Whether they contain shrubs, for example, Caligonum polygonoides, as I discussed in one of the slides, or you have good grasslands, as you saw some of the restored grasslands, or the tree patches, savanna landscape. So my original hypothesis or original thesis that you uh, saw was from household to the wilderness. So different kind of ecosystems. Some are these novel ecosystems, that means created ecosystems, for example, home gardens, etc. So I'm not only for tree-based land restoration, and therefore the so-called green walls of the kind which I have seen in Sahara and China's green wall. China, of course, is almost 2 or 3 species. Similar is the situation with the African green wall. We are certainly not going in that direction. We are going to take benefit of natural ecosystems that exist and not go blindly planting trees wherever you find some treeless areas. So old growth forests and old growth grasslands have similar value for me. That I would say, if we don't want to name it as green wall, we can say something else. What we are looking at is resilient landscapes as they exist and as they might continue to exist tomorrow. More biodiverse, more carbon dense. So this is what I mean.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. I hope Shiva, your query is resolved by Dr. D.N. Pandey. I can see 3 questions from Sitaramji. Okay, Sitaramji, you have also raised the hand. Please, you can ask the question, Sitaramji.
Yeah, I have small 3 questions. First is, must thank you very much because you have created a picture of desert area, which will definitely help us to different dynamics which are taking place over there. I would like to understand the changed direction of monsoon. You have said that it is going towards desert area. So far, while working as a in the field of conservation, we were told so far that role of plantation in the rainfall, achieving rainfall is more. But while we are talking about desert area, the population of plantation comparatively is very less in desert area. So what is the major factor which is playing behind this change of direction of monsoon towards desert area? That is my first question. Then you also mentioned that desert soils are very poor carbon point of view. So what is the reason behind that? And third question is little bit I'm trying to understand dynamics, because especially when we talk about desert area like Rajasthan, where we can come across very orthodox community and very rare jungle. So achieving biodiversity is very important. And while achieving biodiversity, the biodiversity among the community is also important. So while working in area like Rajasthan, how you try to achieve both at ground level, that will be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, you will have to repeat the question, but I remember the first one, which you,
Okay, I will
Again-
repeat again.
no. First one I recall, so you can
Okay.
repeat. First question is extremely valuable. I will share a paper which was published 10 days ago
Ah.
with you. That will help. In a very, very brief, if I say, just as the factors that were at play about 3,500 years ago, when the monsoon retreated from Western India, the reverse factors are at play at the monsoonal front, and therefore there is a westward shift in monsoon, not necessarily related to uh, ground situation today in Thar Desert, but larger connection to climate change and climate's impact on monsoon. That's one reason.
Okay.
Vegetation is not attracting the monsoon in Thar Desert. That is clear by that paper. But I will share this with you. Just say hello in my. This slide has my phone number. Please say hello, and I will share
Yes,
that.
yes.
So primarily because of
Okay.
Sitaramji, that was your first question.
Yes. First question, I got the answer. My second question is, what is the reason behind the soils of Thar or
Okay.
desert?
Yes. Interestingly, this question has to be answered starting in the monsoon was very strong in Western Rajasthan in early Holocene. That is about 10,000, the so-called 10,500 years ago. Now, monsoon was very strong, but sudden aridity set in at about 3,500 years ago to 3,000 years ago. And then the area remained arid. The Indus-Saraswati civilization that flourished, particularly the Indus-Saraswati civilizations, great cities that flourished, were the result of strong monsoon. And finally, when the aridity set in, a large exodus happened, population migration towards the east. Now, in that area, the bare ground that was then no longer remains there. The huge aridity and moving sands because of the wind, and also sometimes erratic rainfall, all that actually deposited something which is devoid of anything else other than silica.
Yeah.
So therefore, desert sands are called carbon limited soils, but they are fertile nevertheless. Interestingly, if you see this last slide where bajra is growing, they are nevertheless fertile. Water and carbon deficit is there, but that is the reason these moving sands are carbon limited, but sand dunes have moisture. It is interesting. I'm sure many of you know, even in the month of June, if you dig a hole in sand dune, after about a meter, you will find moist sand. So it's like mulching over those areas. and therefore the trees are able to grow because ultimately some moisture is there.
Okay.
That is little interesting. So carbon limited soils are a reality. And now, of course, because large scale agriculture is happening, large scale planting is happening, large scale vegetation development by farmers and forest department. So soil carbon is now increasing. Some soil carbon, particularly croplands, they have good soil carbon. So this is, in a nutshell, the reason of being carbon limited, carbon deficit soils.
And thank you for that. My third question is, for doing any conservation work, especially in desert area, the
Ji, ji.
principles that we adopt in community uh, mobilization, that is diversity, is important principle. At the
Ji,
same
ji.
time, biodiversity will be the important input, or what I can say, biodiversity will be important input for doing conservation work. But how
Ji.
it should be achieved in desert area, especially Rajasthan, where diverse communities are there, but achieving inclusive nature, that becomes very difficult. And if I see the present slide over here,
Yeah.
whatever plantation I am seeing, I'm not able to see biodiversity up to that extent. So how difficult it is to bring both aspects together and undertake conservation work? That I would like to understand.
Again, a very interesting question, Sitaramji.
Yeah.
Recently, uh, let me answer this in two parts. Recently, there has been a paper which says that uh, human linguistic diversity and the biodiversity are directly correlated to each other.
Oh,
So that
great.
means, and this particular conclusion holds good for the whole world. The paper was published in Science.
Okay.
Uh, that one also I can share with you.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
A very interesting paper. Very interesting paper. Last time when I presented on natural climate solution, there was one slide related to this when biodiversity conservation came. So you are right that on the one hand, we need institutional strengthening and drawing on community knowledge, which in turn requires collaboration with those people. And on the other hand, we need collaboration with ecologists, foresters, and uh, many more disciplines
Yeah.
to let the biodiversity of that region flourish.
Yes. Thank you.
This
Thank you,
has
sir.
been a challenge. I agree with you. This has been a challenge.
Yeah.
In fact, Thar Desert is losing more agrobiodiversity than any other region in the country,
Okay.
because we have our species that we grow, varieties that we grow, are already adapted to warmer climate.
Yes.
So warm climate species varieties need to be protected, and that cannot happen without people's cooperation. So biodiversity at home, in our home garden, that means agrobiodiversity. Biodiversity over the agroecosystems again means part agrobiodiversity and part the biodiversity over the larger landscape. That means wild species of both plants and animals, not just flora,
Yeah.
but fauna as well. And so I think we are giving a graded response to this. First of all, we have identified the most valuable species from the point of view of the people residing in that area.
Okay.
And we are, of course, we have incorporated those in our new plantations, the so-called plantations or so-called sand dune stabilization. Then we, of course, sequential restoration, where earlier we stabilized these sand dunes only with one species. Now we are introducing about 30-35 species in existing but reactivating sand dunes. And lastly, the new work is being taken. I mean, we are not taking up acacia tortilis alone now.
Okay.
Even if that means a little less survival, we are going for many of these species. But unfortunately, I would concur with you, Sitaramji, that we have completely neglected our herbs. We have more or less neglected our shrubs. We have cared only for a few trees, and we have neglected a large number of trees. Let me give you another example. Tamil Nadu has 1,200 species of trees. Less than 30 species are being used in plantations.
Oh.
For last 1 year, I visited 19 Indian states, and 14 of these were also the states where we have conducted state roundtables on natural climate solution, and I have data for all these. As well as the other one, going to
Sir, your voice is
19,
breaking.
by visiting some of these areas, 7 days in each state, less than 5% of the tree species are being used for our reforestation, restoration of species are being used for our. Ganesh
Okay. So we are over with 10 minutes more from the time. But Diwakar Sharma ji has raised his hand since long. So we will take last question from
No,
Diwakar.
Divakar, Ganesh. One more question is from Ministry of Environment and Forest. So
Okay,
I
from the
would
chat.
request Deep Bhai to answer both the questions. One is from Divakar ji, and the other one is from Ministry of Environment and Forest. So please.
Okay.
please.
Diwakar ji, please
We will
ask your
take
question
we will
and
take
keep
up
it
the
crisp.
first question first with the by our minister.
Okay. So, Pandey sir, Dr. EVR Raju from EAC member of Industry Sector, Ministry of EFCC, asking about some suggestion for the native species for developing green belts in industry, specifically in cement industry. Little out of context question, but he's looking for guidance. Pandey sir, I am audible?
You
Hello.
can unshare the presentation also. That will again give some bandwidth maybe.
If you are speaking, sir, we are unable to listen from your side.
No, I think
He left.
we lost him. Let me try once again to
Okay.
get him back.
Sudipto ji, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
You are.
Now we can hear you, sir.
Okay. Dr. Saab, the question that you have raised is very valuable, and my simple answer is that because I have visited many of these industries also. I would say the region in which cement industry is located, that region may contain numerous large seeded species which are emergent as well, and emergent species and late successional species, that should be our first choice, primarily because of two reasons.
Pandey sir, we are not in a position to listen you. It's like we are with very low bandwidth.
Within the cement
Mm,
factory premises is available. Recycled water is also available. Ganesh ji?
yes, now you're audible, sir. We missed your last 30 seconds.
Am I audible?
Sir, I think you are in very low bandwidth area. So as we are like over with nearly 10 minutes, I think
Am I audible?
again we have like very breaking voice from your side. So with
Okay, Ganesh,
your
let us take the
permission.
question from Divakar ji, and we will try to send the answers to
Okay.
Dr. EVR Raju on email or something. So we'll send the question to Dr. Deep.
Dr. Deep, sir.
Yeah, Dr. Divakar.
Please keep it crisp, sir.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Dr. Pandey, for a nice presentation. My question is related to somewhat, earlier questions asked. So we know that desert is an important ecosystem and has unique biodiversity. This is being affected already because of the Indira Gandhi Canal coming there, agriculture growing, and then we want to stop the desertification, which we have to do for the economic purposes and all. So my question is that where do we stop in controlling desertification? What would be your idea that this is the area that we should leave for the uniqueness of desert ecosystem for its biodiversity, and rest of the area we can kind of use to stop the expansion of desertification?
I think we lost Pandey, sir.
Okay, Divakar ji, we have heard your question. Can you write it on the chat box, because it seems that there's some internet issue over there. So we will get back to Dr. EVR Raju and Divakar ji. But Divakar ji, please place your question in on the chat box. So I would like to thank all of you for joining us on International Biodiversity Day. And we will meet again. We are coming up with another NCIS lecture series that is, I think, on 28th. And this time we will be discussing on data warning system and its applications in natural resource management. The speaker would be ex-Deputy Director of the Indian Meteorological Department. It will be on 28th at the same time. So thank you again very much. Thank you, Ganesh, for moderating the session. Thanks, MD Office, Niharika, for organizing all this meet. So meet you all again. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.